Hi everyone, welcome or welcome back to my channel. I'm Isabel and this is my library. In today's video, I will be sharing with you everything that I read in the month of July. So the month of July was pretty eventful for me. I had a couple buddy reads. I participated in Summerween, which was a week-long readathon, and I think I did pretty good as far as like the number of books I read. However, it has not been my highest rated reading month. So I'll go ahead and start you off by sharing some stats with you. So let's take a look at what the numbers say. So I read a total of 9 books in the month of July for a total of 1,766 pages. The categories include 4 horror novellas, 1 literary fiction, 1 fantasy, 1 classic mystery, 1 horror novel, and 1 manga. The formats for these were 2 ebooks, 6 of my reads were physical and audio in tandem, and 1 purely physical read. So now that I have shared with you my stats, I'll go ahead and start telling you about each of the books that I read. As I do each month, I will talk to you about the books from the book that I liked the least to the book I liked most. Some of these I completed for my Summerween readathon, and I have a vlog video out where you can hear my complete and detailed thoughts on each of the books that I read for Summerween. I will go ahead and link that for you in the description box below in case you haven't seen that vlog and you want a more detailed analysis of those books. So I'll go ahead and start off with my lowest rated book for the month of July, which was Graveyard Shift by ML Rio, and I rated this 2 stars. This book is basically following a group of people that in one way or another are connected to this university, and one day they find a hole that has been dug like a grave, and they start to try to figure out why the hole was dug, who dug it, so on and so forth. I found that this book was really lacking in plot. It was very, very slow moving, despite it being a horror novella and being very, very short. It was very slow moving. It did try to develop certain characters profoundly. It did try to do like almost like a character study on like 2 of the characters, but I felt that the fact that all the characters were not given the equal amount of treatment or airtime to be kind of bothersome, because why were certain characters highlighted and others not? I felt overall that this was very lackluster. It was kind of boring. Nothing really happens, which I'm okay with this. I am not a person that needs a lot of heavy action. I'm good with a good character study. I am good with, you know, the book being more about the vibes than the action. Like, that's not something that bothers me. But overall, I do understand why this book doesn't have the highest of ratings, simply because of the lack of action. Like, nothing really happens, and it's too short to be like a character study on this many characters, and I'm not really sure what ML Rio was trying to do here, you know? So I think because of that confusion of the point of the book is why I gave this a 2 star. And I did want to prioritize reading this because it was one of the books that I wanted to read, 25 books in 2025. And it had been on my list for a little bit. And I had kind of put it off because of its low ratings. And I can kind of see why. Like, this is one of those cases where I do agree with the populace that, you know, this is not a great read. So the next book on my list is unfortunately Water Moon by Samantha Soto Yambao, and this is coming in at 2.5 5 stars. I know, I'm devastated too. This book is one that I had on my list for a little bit. I know that Kayla had picked it for one of her besties book club picks. I never got around to reading it at that point, but then my best friend and I picked it for our buddy read. We both had high expectations simply because of the premise of the book. This suffers from, and again, this could be partly my fault. I'll explain now, but this suffers from this syndrome that I'll read very, very little of the synopsis. I fall in love with the first 2 lines because the premise seems to be something I'm gonna love. And then I pick it up and the book is not about that. And I know the reason I say I'm partly to blame is because I didn't read the full synopsis. Even now, I have not read the full synopsis. So maybe had I read the full thing, I would have known better where the book was going. But this happens to me fairly often, and it's just something that I can't get over. I feel the same thing happened to me with that series Before the Coffee Gets Cold. This reminded me so much of that book because I went into that book as I did this one because of the premise. It was a premise that I thought I was really going to enjoy. And then the book kind of is about something else or doesn't deliver when it comes to the premise. So let me tell you a little bit about Watermoon. So I went into Watermoon because Watermoon is about a pawn shop that people can go to and they can pawn their biggest regrets. That was what I knew of this, that there's a store that people go to and they have regrets and they pawn them and get something in return, maybe to make that experience go away, to redeem this regret, something like that. That's what I thought this was going to be, that I was going to be reading about a ton of people who walk into this pawn shop, what regrets they have and what they're willing to give up to get rid of that regret in exchange, what that exchange is going to be. That's what I wanted this book to be, but this is not what the book ended up being. The book pretty much does have a pawn shop where people can pawn their regrets, but from the very beginning of the book, we meet the new shop owner, Hannah, and she has inherited the shop from her father. He's passing it on to her. But the morning where she's supposed to have the shop for the very first day, she wakes up and she's there at her shop and her father goes missing. And then a young man steps into the pawn shop and it's kind of insta love. We'll talk about that now. And he goes on this whole journey to help her find her father. This whole book is her trying to find out what happened to her father. We don't get a bunch of stories at the pawn shop. Most of the story is not at the pawn shop. And yeah, it's that I think is what bothered me about this. I think had I not gone into it thinking that we were going to be at this pawn shop the whole time, listening to various tales, had I known that it was a story about a daughter trying to find her father and traveling these magical lands, I would have been better with it. It's just, that's not why I went into this book. I find that although the book had these concepts that normally I would love, there was a little bit of time traveling, there was a little bit of portal, like going through something to reach another area. It was kind of portal fiction, which I normally love. I couldn't get into it. Something about the storytelling or the writing or me wanting to go back, waiting to go back to the pawn shop kept me from really enjoying this. This was a lot more fantasy than I thought it was going to be. It takes place in like another world. I did not. I thought this was going to be in our world with magical or speculative elements. So I think maybe this is promoted wrongly, maybe that's what's going on. Like it's not reaching its right audience. I'm sure there are people who will read this and love it. Just understand that you're reading a fantasy story, a love story, a story of a young woman trying to find her father. and most of it takes place in other worlds. That's basically what you're looking at with Watermoon. And I did give it 2.5 stars. So, yeah, this basically just suffers from wrong marketing, or maybe, not being pushed out the way that it should be. I found that there was not a lot of depth to the characters. I feel like I didn't really get to know the characters. I was not invested in their story. The love story was really not doing anything for me. Like, I didn't think there was going to be a love story. I don't want a love story. Maybe it's me because I'm not like into like the romance stuff. When I go into a contemporary romance or like a particular romance book, I know that's what I'm getting and I'm going into. So I don't reach for it often, you know. But when I do, I'm expecting that. So I don't really like a lot of romantic things thrown into my regular books. I don't like that. So I didn't enjoy that either. But yeah, that's pretty much Watermoon, 2.5 stars. And it came in second to last on my list of things that I read in July. So the next book is Jackknife by Joe Hill, and that is a part of the Shivers collection, which is available on Kindle Unlimited. And I know I have talked a lot about this collection on my channel. I've been slowly making my way through all of those Amazon original stories, which I think are wonderful. And a lot of them, if not most of them, are famous horror writers, like very popular horror writers who are asked to contribute a short story to this Shivers collection. And there are a couple collections actually. Shivers is just one of them with like five little novellas. So this one is Jackknife by Joe Hill. I have read from Joe Hill before. As you guys might know, it's Stephen King's son. My favorite book that I have read of Joe Hill's is Heart Shaped Box. I believe I read that a long time ago, but that was a wonderful horror story. So Jackknife, I ended up giving 3 stars. When I originally finished, I had given it a 3.5 stars. That was at the beginning of the month. Now, at this point that we are in, when I was preparing this wrap up, it had escaped my mind. Jackknife was just so not memorable that I had to knock it down half a star. So now it's a 3 star. It's no longer a 3.5 star. I adjusted my rating simply because I found it difficult to even remember, like, what was this about. And I think that's a true indication of whether or not you enjoyed a book or whether or not it was a good book. Like, good books, even if you don't maybe love them when you first finish them, if they stay with you and you're still thinking about them at the ending of the month and at the ending of the year, like, that's a good sign. Like, and this didn't have that. So in this book, we are following our main character who stumbles upon this tree that has a knife in it, right? And this whole story is about him having removed the knife. Like, he removes the knife and the things that start to happen as a result of that. And the knife, when it's in the tree, has like a note etched in. And apparently it was like a knife that was a part of like a Boy Scout troop or something like that. And so he starts to like see these things, and the tree pretty much is like alive, like mobile. Like, the tree is like moving, and he feels like the tree is like following him around. And basically that's what this is, right? And then there's an encounter with like this homeless person, and there's some animal stuff that I wasn't the biggest fan of. So it just seemed a little bit random. So interesting premise with this moving tree kind of a thing, but overall the story was just lackluster and not memorable, which I think is a true indication of, that I didn't enjoy it or like it as much as I could have. And that's really all I want to tell you, because it's a very short story. I think this one is only 45 pages long, so it's very, very short. This was probably, out of all the stories in the Shivers collection, my least favorite. I have ranked all the other ones or rated all the other ones much higher. So next on my list is The Saturday Night Ghost Club by Craig Davidson. This is a book that had been on my TBR for a really long time. I also made it part of the 25 books that I want to read in 2025. simply because I really thought I would enjoy it, and it had been on my TBR for a while, and I had heard pretty good things about it. So ultimately, I ended up giving this book 3 stars. There were things I really enjoyed about this. I did enjoy like this relationship that the young protagonist has with the uncle. I did enjoy the nostalgic vibes. I did enjoy the idea of these misfit kids being ghost hunters or being obsessed with the occult, and like kind of like the nods to like Stranger Things, or it kind of felt a little bit like that in some parts. So I really did enjoy it. I just wish I had more of that. And I do tell you a lot about this in my Summerween video. So if you want more of my thoughts, just refer to that. I don't want to repeat too much in case you do watch all my videos. But yeah, I wanted more. I liked it as a coming of age story. It's a Bildungsroman, loss of innocence story, and I did enjoy that because I that's normally a trope or a topic theme that I normally do like when we have young protagonists that go through a loss of innocence in the book. That's something that I do like. I just feel like it could have been maybe explored a little bit better. I would have wanted more of their adventures, or I wanted more of the uncle too, because I really enjoyed the beginning of this with the relationship between him and the uncle, and how the uncle believed all of his superstitious uh ideas and stuff like that. Like when he thought he saw a ghost, the uncle believed him, and then he offered him solutions and protections, and his fascination with the occult. I enjoyed a lot of that. I didn't love the explanations for the uncle's way of being later in the book. That's spoilery, so I won't really talk about that, but I felt like we didn't need that. Like I felt like that was something that didn't have to be added there. There are adults who just believe in the supernatural or the occult, and I think I maybe would have preferred that or another version of that instead of what we ended up getting, if that makes sense. It'll make sense if you've read the book. And yeah, it was just okay for me. It was 3 stars. I feel like had I not been anticipating this book so much, I would have rated it like a 4 star. In another world, this could be a 4 star read for me. I just really had high hopes for this book, and I wanted to love it, and I wanted it to be more impactful than it was. So it ended up just being a 3 star. So next on my list is The Indigo Room by Stephen Graham Jones, which you guys know I love him so much. And actually, I think I told you in a video that I was gonna meet Stephen Graham Jones. He had an event here uh, in one of my local bookstores for the release of his new book, and I had the pleasure of meeting him. I'll go ahead and pop up a picture here so you can see. But I was completely fangirling at the event, and he was just so wonderful. Like he was everything I thought he would be and more. He was so funny and like quirky, so it was a lot of fun. So Indigo Room is one of his short stories that appears as a part of the Shivers collection. I did end up giving this one 3.5 stars, and it has stayed with me actually. So I can see myself bumping up the 3.5 to like a 4 star eventually, because the story, believe it or not, has stayed with me. I think the main reason why I gave it a 3.5 is because I thought the ending was too inconclusive for me. I wanted something more with the ending. But basically, the Indigo Room takes place in this office setting where there are all of these employees. When one of the employees is doing a presentation, our protagonist sees something. Like when the lights go off and it's like the Indigo Room is in its, indigo moment, she sees 2 things. She sees like a person without a head, like one of the people there beheaded, and then she sees like a person missing like a hand, and she thinks she's like losing it. She's like, oh my god, I'm losing it, like what's going on? She freaks out. She makes a big deal about it. She loses so much control at that moment that she forgets to pick up her kid from school, like all of these things, right? And so eventually like her kid gets dropped off there at the office, and she's trying to like make sense of everything. And that's all I want to tell you, because again, this is a 35-page story, super short. So that's all I kind of want to say about that. But it was very cool. It had some creepy moments. I felt like the storytelling was great, as with most Stephen Graham Jones's writing. Like the language feels sophisticated, his sentences are lengthy and convoluted, so syntactically it feels like it's not like a quick little short story that is easy to read. This feels like you have to work for it, because of his writing style. So that's all I kind of want to say about that, in case you've never read a Stephen Graham Jones. Just take your time with it because of his writing style. Yeah, I thought it was a good story. It actually has stayed with me for a while. I vividly remember all of the descriptions, and um, it had some truly scary scenes. So it was good. I enjoyed it, and I ended up giving it 3.5 stars. So I'm laughing. Guys, so next on my list is All Fours by Miranda July. So I'll start by saying, before I even, it's just, where do I begin, right? Where do I begin? As of the filming of this video, I haven't had my live discussion for this yet. I'm not sure if you will be watching the live before you see this wrap up. I have a couple videos I need to edit, and some things need to, get done. So I'm not sure the order you're going to be watching this, but I will let you know that All Fours was our buddy read for the month of July for myself and for Michelle from Literary Me and Dee from the Reading Room 1972. So the three of us in the month of July read All Fours together, and we will be hosting our live show for this next Tuesday at 7 p.m. Eastern Time. So hopefully you get to catch that. I don't want to reveal too much of my thoughts on this because of the live show, and I'm not really sure what you're going to see first or not. But of course, I'll tell you what this was about and what I rated it and all of that. But I just know that I'm holding a lot back because as of the filming of this video, I haven't had the live yet. So keep that in mind. So All Fours by Miranda July is a literary fiction novel in which we explore a lot of very profound and nuanced themes. We explore topics of sexuality, gender roles, sexuality, menopause, perimenopause, fame, fantasies versus real life. We are following a protagonist in this book who's a woman in her mid 40s who is experiencing this want or need for change in her life, for excitement, for the opportunity to be what she always wanted to be, right? First, I'll tell you the language is beautiful. Like, I think Miranda July has a beautiful writing voice. Some of the questions that she poses are so thought provoking. Some of her quotes really make you think and wonder. For those reasons alone, if I were just looking at the writing, the topics that are brought up and discussed, the treatment and handling of certain situations, I'd give this a 5 star. However, this is not a 5 star for me simply because of some of those subject matters and the way that they are portrayed. I'll tell you a little bit about the plot, right? Because I know I've been talking thematically and I haven't really told you a lot of the plot, but in this, we are following this woman, the 45-year-old woman I was telling you about, and she has to go to New York for work reasons. She's a famous person. I say famous because they never really tell you what she's famous for. Like, we know she's an artist. We get the feeling that it's like a writer or something along those lines, writer, musician, something like that, right? Where she creates something that others can enjoy, but they never really go into detail. So she has to go to New York, and she has to leave her husband and her child behind to go to New York and do this. But her husband kind of convinces her to do a road trip instead of flying there. And so she's like, okay, fine, I'll do this road trip. And once she sets off on her road trip, I'll just let you know, like, she never makes it to New York. Like, her life takes like this turn, and she starts kind of exploring like an alternate lifestyle as she tells her husband that she's obviously on her road trip to New York. This book was wild. Some of her choices, the characters' choices, the things that she thinks and says, I found myself so many times saying, "What? What?" And yeah, that's really all I want to tell you here. For my complete thoughts, non-spoilery and spoilery, watch the live show that we will be having together. If by the time I put this video up, the live has happened, I will link it down below for you. If not, if you're watching this first, make sure you tune into the live so that I can really tell you exactly how I feel. But if you're interested in picking this up, just kind of note that it is very sexual. There are explicit sexual happenings here, so if you're not super comfortable with that, I would kind of caution you with that. That's really all the kind of trigger warnings I want to give you. Some are just very weird graphic things that are explained. There's some things that are a little icky, maybe. I'll leave it at that. So you might want to look up some of those trigger warnings before you pick this up. But overall, this was a very well written book. It was weird. It was so weird. It was so out there, but it stayed with me. Like, this book is still with me, and the writing was exceptional. So I know I told you at the beginning it's like a 3.5 right now. I think I can talk myself into this being a 4. Let me look at my Goodreads real quick. Yeah, right now, yeah, my review on Goodreads says that I'm currently at a 3.54 star. After talking myself through this to tell you about the book, I'm more tempted to give it a 4 star. Let me see how I feel after my live show with my booktube friends. And I will kind of either stay at the 3.5 or bump this up to the 4. But yeah, I have a lot of thoughts on this that I will be sharing with you in that live show. And that's All Fours by Miranda July. The next book on my list is The Night Guest by Hildur Notstutter. So I also read this for Summerween, and I really, really enjoyed it. I gave this a 4 star, and I thought that this was a very cool concept, cool little novella. It's very short. And I know it might not look that short, but I just want to show you. Like, a lot of the chapters look like this. So it goes by really, really fast. It's a super quick read. So in this, we are following a woman who, as of when the book opens, she is visiting doctor's offices a lot, trying to see if she needs a therapist or if it's something more physical instead of mental. But she's been very fatigued. She's very tired. She doesn't have a lot of energy. And in particular, she wakes up in the morning exhausted. Very quickly, as she's trying to like just get on with her everyday life and figure out what's wrong with her, we start to see the author developing lots of important concepts, themes, thoughts, points to talk about. We see a little bit of the conversations of women and their bodies, and how a lot of times the world doesn't understand women who feel they have certain ailments or feel certain ways, or doctors can't really find what's wrong, but they know there's something wrong. So there are very nuanced conversations about that, which I did enjoy. We also dabble a little bit into the supernatural question mark as to what is happening, because very quickly we find out that the main character is doing a lot of walking, and she's walking at night. So after she gets herself, like, she checks like her steps, right, to see if she's getting enough exercise or not enough exercise, or too much exercise or too much walking or too little walking. She surprises herself by seeing that she'll go to bed and it'll say she's walked like X amount of steps. But then she wakes up and she's walked like 10,000 steps overnight. And she's like, I was in bed the whole night. Like, what's going on? So very quickly, she starts to figure out answers to that. Is it somnambulism, sleepwalking? Is it, what's going on, right? So I think that's all I want to tell you I do want to give you some trigger warnings for animal cruelty, animal violence, animal abuse. That's like very prevalent in this book. So I do want to warn you about that, because if you cannot read about stuff like that, it is here. You know, that's just a part of the book. I also want to tell you the reason I didn't give this a 5 star is because of the ending. I was not really satisfied with the ending. And I talk more about this in my Summerween vlog, you know, if you want to go there for more complete thoughts. I basically felt like the author, and this is again how I felt as a reader, she didn't really know how to finish it. She didn't have answers, so she just leaves us without the answers. And I'm normally okay with not a lot of answers in books. I don't need everything to be wrapped up for me. I like open ended endings. Like, I'm okay with a lot of those things. But I'm not okay with it when it feels like either the author wrote herself into a corner or the author didn't know how to finish it and then that happened. So it feels a little bit like lazy to me, like the way that the ending was handled. But other than that, it was absolutely wonderful. Like, I really, really enjoyed it. It is a translation. It does not feel like a translation. It's easy to read. And the audiobook, I read some parts of this with the audiobook and it helped me with the pronunciation of some of the names, because this does take place in Iceland. I think it's Iceland. So yeah, overall, I do recommend this. Solid 4 star for me. Really good read. So next on my list, which I finished prior to the ending of June, like right at the ending of June. But I did do some in-depth studies of this and rereading of this book, because I did read this for a buddy read. So that's why it's not included in my June wrap up, but it's included in my July wrap up. And that is Picnic at Hanging Rock by Joan Lindsay. So I gave this 4 stars, and I read this as a part of my booktube friend Jen's book club. So this was her first book for her book club, and she did ask me to be one of the co-hosts for the live show, and I was thrilled. It was such a great reading experience, such a great live show. If you did not catch it, I will go ahead and link this in the description box below, and it is on Jen's channel, and we just had a great time. We had some really interesting conversations, and since this is a classic, it did lend itself to some really, really cool conversations and analyses and all of that stuff. So if you didn't catch that, I will go ahead and link it down below so you can watch it on her channel. First, I'll tell you that Picnic at Hanging Rock it's a classic. It's an Australian classic, and it is pretty much like a mystery. Like, I would say it's a mystery classic, if you will. The premise of this is that we are following a group of girls who attend an all-girls school for the wealthy and the elite and stuff like that. It is taking place in the 1900s. The year is 1900. And one day, Valentine's Day, the girls go on a field trip and they are taken to Hanging Rock, which is this monolith in the middle of the woods. It's this huge, massive rock, right? And the girls go have a picnic there and they drink their tea and they're hanging out, having a lazy kind of day. And something happens there. 3 of the girls and one of the teachers goes missing. They head toward the rock and they vanish, like they disappear in the middle of the day and they're not found, right? And the driver and the remainder of the girls return to the school and they have no idea what has happened to their 3 friends and to the teacher. So that happens right at the beginning. Like, that's like the first thing that happens in the book. And the rest of the book is almost like an investigation, if you will, of people trying to figure out what has happened. The true beauty of this, obviously, though, is like the commentary, the themes that are developed. There's beautiful, rich symbolism. For example, once they arrive at Hanging Rock, their watches stop working. Like no one's watch works. So there's this like break in time. And there's these comments of how minuscule and insignificant humans are in comparison to the grandness of nature and the universe and all of that. So go into it knowing that that's what you're looking for, these big, big thought provoking ideas and concepts. The middle of the book, as with a lot of classics, I personally feel, is long. Like it feels very long, like it kind of drags a bit. So there's lack of action in the middle because the beginning is so impactful, and then it kind of just, it feels like it's just flat, right? Like nothing else interesting happens until like the ending. So just go into it knowing it's a classic and it feels like a classic. This is not like a little murder mystery kind of a thing, or it's something else. The language is very beautiful, the imagery is beautiful. I mentioned this in the live show. When I first finished reading it, I thought it was like a 3.5. I was like, okay, this was like, it was good, but it felt like a drag too much or whatnot. After doing my research and diving into the book and really grasping what the author was doing here, I ended up giving it a 4 star. And the more I think about it, the more I enjoy it, the more I like it, the more kind of obsessed I am over some of these ideas and themes. A little tidbit I want to tell you is the author did write a different ending. Like she has her original ending for this, which is not the published ending. Her publishers told her to end it differently, not the way she had originally done it. And that is the version you get here. However, online, you can read the original ending chapter, which I did not. It was very difficult for me to find it, but I did read lots of articles in my research that tell me what her original ending was. And I thought it was very cool. So, if you do read this, do some research after so you can see um, what her own original ending would have been, could have been for this book. So I thought it was very enjoyable, and concepts. It's a book you want to take your time with. You want to read slowly. You want to kind of study, as with most classics. And yeah, I think that's all I want to tell you about that. Please watch our live show if this is even remotely interesting to you. I think you might enjoy it. And that's Picnic at Hanging Rock by Joan Lindsay. And now we're ready for my favorite read of this month, my only 5 star, because Picnic at Hanging Rock was 4 stars. So this was my only 5 star. If you watched my Summerween video, you already heard me talking about this because I did read this for Summerween. And it almost feels so strange that this is my 1 5 star of the month. I mean, I don't know, but it is a manga, and it is Danganronpa, the animation volume 1. This was my favorite read of July, which, it seems a little silly, right? Like that this is what I enjoyed the most. This very like graphic manga based on a video game was my favorite thing to read when I read all these like lit fic and like classics and all of that. But, you know, the heart wants what the heart wants. And this was just so much fun for me because I love the video game. So this is inspired by the Danganronpa video game. If you're not familiar with that video game, it is a visual novel kind of game that has the player making choices and doing a lot of the deciding, and you know it's not really like your traditional kind of video game. So basically we are following our main character. In the video game you play the main character, right? But I'm going to tell you not about the game. I'm going to tell you about the manga. So we are following our main character, who is a young boy of little fame. He's just like an average boy who has applied to this very fancy private school, and he was accepted. And he can't even figure out why he was accepted because everyone else who was accepted along with him is famous. They're known for something. Like they're like the world's best golf player, or the world's strongest woman, or the most popular pop artist. You know, everyone has like a title. And his is just like the luckiest person, like because he got accepted with being a nobody. Very, very quickly, once they arrive at the school and they meet each other, they realize that their purpose there at the school is nefarious, like something is off. So the headmaster, who is this bear, right? And they don't know if it's like magical or a robot or AI, or you know, they don't really know what it is, right? They're just like, it's a talking bear, right? So the talking bear is the headmaster, and he basically tells them, well, you guys are all here and you're stuck here because we're going to be playing a game. And the game is that you cannot escape this school unless you murder one of your classmates and get away with it. Because if you do murder one of your classmates and you get caught, then you're going to die too. So the only way to successfully win this game that now you're all playing is by doing that. And so, yeah, it becomes, you know, very high stakes for survival, because they're trying to, you know, figure out like, how do they escape here? Do they really have to do this terrible thing of killing like a fellow classmate? Like, what's going on? So it's a lot of fun. If you've played the game, I still think there's great value in reading about the story, you know, like if you've played it, it's still fun, even though you know where a lot of it goes. If you haven't, then, and you're not interested in playing the game, go ahead and just, you know, read the manga, because it is a lot of fun. If you are interested in playing the game though, then I recommend you do that first instead of reading it, because this does spoil a lot of the things that you discover yourself as you're making the choices and investigating and doing that in the actual game. But yeah, this was my favorite thing that I read in the month of July. I did give it 5 stars, and it was my only 5 star. And there you have it, guys. Those are all of the wonderful things that I read in the month of July. I did start a couple other books that I'm in between right now. So as of the filming of this video, I've already started 2 or 3 things that will be a part of my August pile of books that I will read. But I was successfully able to finish all 9 of these. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. Have you read any of these books? What did you rate them? Did I persuade you or dissuade you from reading any of these? I would love to hear your thoughts and your comments. If you've read any of these things, do you agree with my ratings? Let's have some conversations down below in the comment section. Please like this video. Please subscribe to my channel so that I can continue connecting with you and bringing you more content like this one and talking about books, which is my favorite thing to do. Thank you guys so much for watching. I will catch you in the next one. Bye!